the Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist. Or maybe it's more than that.
Are you decoding my book?
I am decoding it right now.
Like it's entirely about me, but it's all written in hieroglyphic.
Well, it's not quite as impenetrable as hieroglyphics. Let's start with part one of your book, and it is titled Personal. And in there, the first column is really an incredibly moving piece about your brother. Marcel Krauthammer died of cancer 7 years ago. He was 59. Charles writes this about his older brother. Quote, "He taught me most everything I ever learned about every sport I ever played. He taught me how to throw a football, hit a backhand, grip a 9-iron, field a grounder, dock a sailboat in a tailing wind, and how we played. It was paradise." Tell me about that.
It was a paradisiacal childhood. My brother and I were inseparable. He was 4 years older, which is why this was a priceless gift. He always insisted I be included, so I got used to being around the big boys and taking the slings and arrows, and that's how you get toughened up. My parents were from Europe. He was American, my brother, born in Brazil, but that's a long story. But American, and he made me an American.
That long story short. Krauthammer's mother, Thea, is from Belgium. His father, Shulem, was a real estate developer from what is now a province of Ukraine. Both Jews who'd left World War II Europe. They met in Havana, moved to Rio, and eventually New York City, where Charles was born in 1950. When he was 5, the Krauthammers moved to Montreal. But they spent summers at the family cottage in Long Beach, New York. Charles recalls spending every day with his brother on the field, on the court, or in the water.
I don't think I owned a shirt till I was 21. All the pictures, the family movies, my father is shirtless, my brother shirtless, I am. We're outside in the sun. I read on the beach. That's where I got all my knowledge, was reading.
Of course there was reading and studying. Shulem Krauthammer, who spoke 9 languages, even carried his son's stellar second-grade report card around in his coat pocket.
His motto for us was, I want you to know everything. I want you to learn everything. You don't have to do everything, but you got to know everything. He thought that was part of life.
That life did not include a TV, says the cable news pundit.
My father wouldn't allow it. Once a week, Sunday night, we'd go to the neighbors to watch the Ed Sullivan Show. That was the one concession to television.
Inspired by uncles who were doctors, Marcel Krauthammer went to medical school. It was assumed Charles would follow. But as a 19-year-old senior at McGill, the internationally renowned Canadian university, he was bitten by a different bug, political journalism.
Well, that was a little bit of campus intrigue. The editorship of the newspaper at McGill was controlled by the student council. I'd been elected to the student council, and the paper was becoming unreadable. It was run by Marxist Maoists. I mean, it was just, it looked like it came out of the Soviet Union. He just couldn't read it. So we engineered a coup to fire the editor. And then we sort of realized, well, what do we do now? We have to find an editor. So they looked around and they decided it's going to be me. So I said, wait, I've never worked on a paper. I said, a detail.
A poli-sci and economics major, he loved thinking and writing about all things political. He applied to medical school to please his family and got accepted to Harvard. But he got into Oxford as well to study political theory. Would Krauthammer choose a life of science or a life of letters? The brilliant graduate had enviable options, but he hadn't figured out what mattered most to him. So he split the difference. He put off Harvard, enrolled at Oxford. And while studying history's great political philosophers, he met a fellow student from Australia, Robin Trethewey. Attractive and brilliant too, a clerk to the Chief Justice of her home state's Supreme Court. But so much would change in the 3 years between when they met and married, beginning with his sudden decision to leave England.
I had this little epiphany of sorts. I started political theory. It was getting more and more abstract. I learned a lot, but I began to feel that I was sort of spinning out into a universe that had nothing to do with the real world. I called the registrar at Harvard Medical School and said, I'd like to come in the coming class. And I remember her saying, well, one guy dropped out. We got a spot. If you're here on Monday, it's yours. So I grabbed a toothbrush and I didn't pack. I got on a plane and I left. And that's how I decided to become a doctor. Now, when I woke up in Boston, the next day I thought to myself, oh my God, what have I done? But there was no going back.
Why did you choose psychiatry?
I was looking for something halfway between the reality of medicine and the elegance, if you like, of philosophy. So psychiatry was the obvious thing. That was my intention from the first day. And I was lucky because it was probably the easiest branch of medicine for me to do once I was hurt.
Hurt. That doesn't even begin to describe it. When did you realize that the accident was life-altering?
The second it happened.
After the break.